Hi team, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian, core design engineer with Brunswick Bowling, and since the Conspiracy and the Outer Limits Pearl are both available in pro shops as we speak, I thought now would be a good time to review the comparison chart that's available on radicalbowling.com. If you're looking for this comparison chart, just go to radicalbowling.com, click on the ball that you'd like to see on the comparison chart, scroll all the way down to the bottom to the resources section, and you're able to click and download the comparison chart. That'll bring up a PDF and you'll have it right there in front of you. But first I'm going to do a little self-promotion. I was on the Radical Rundown for both of these cores. I did a Radical Rundown when the Conspiracy scheme came out, and I did a deep dive on the shape of the original Conspiracy core and the reason that it is designed the way it's designed. It's compared against two other asymmetric cores that were available at the time that the scheme was out, and the same thing with the Outer Limits core. In a separate video on Radical's page, on the Radical Rundown, I was able to review that Outer Limits core, give you a deep dive about the unique shape and all of the core features, including the boat on the bottom, the knobs on the tops, and the moment arms on the sides of that core. That very unique shape has a very specific purpose, and if you want more information on either of those two cores, the links are in the description. Go ahead and go to YouTube, click on the description, and click View More. They'll be down at the bottom of the description for your viewing pleasure. Now, as a 1,000-foot overview of both of these cores, we'll start here with the Conspiracy. The original Conspiracy core has a moderately low 2487 RG. That means it's going to be relatively fast revving, but not the fastest revving core. An 056 total differential means that there's going to be a lot of flare potential for this strong asymmetrical ball. And 021 intermediate diff means that this core has a lot of intermediate diff, which usually translates into a lot of change of direction when the ball encounters friction. We'll talk a little more when we bring up the chart, but relatively speaking, this is still a smooth and continuous, strong, but not overly aggressive asymmetrical solid for the top of your bag. Moving over to the Outer Limits core in the Outer Limits Pearl. This is of course the same core that was in the original hybrid. With the shiny box finish, it gives you a little more kick at the back of the lane, but this is a more medium revving core at 2499, effectively a 250 RG. It has less differential at 051, but that's still on the high side, so that's going to be a decent amount of flare potential, but not read at your toes flare potential, and a lot more moderate intermediate differential at 014. That's going to be more in the benchmark range with a little more continuation in terms of the relative gradual change of direction core for core compared to the Conspiracy core, for example. But you'll see the cover stocks make a big difference now as we flip over to the comparison chart and look at these relative to the rest of the Radical lineup. By now, you Radical fans should be very familiar with this chart. The balls are sorted by oil volume, with the ones that are built to handle the heaviest amount of oil volume on the right side of the chart, all the way down to the balls that are built to handle the least amount of oil volume on the left side of the chart, and by response to friction, with the sharpest responding balls toward the top of the chart and the smoothest responding balls toward the bottom of the chart. As we zoom in here now on our brand new Radical Conspiracy, you'll notice that it is one of the smoothest reacting asymmetrical balls currently in the lineup. Compared to the scheme, which is no longer on the chart, it still has more change of direction, more overall shape, especially in the late mid lane, and it is going to be built to handle more heavy oil volumes than that Conspiracy scheme. That came at a shiny box finish as well, but even sanded, I think finish for finish, this Radical Conspiracy is going to outhook that scheme. The Radical fans who were able to throw the original Conspiracy are going to be very pleased to recognize this ball motion. It is a slightly stronger, slightly sharper, and maybe not quite as continuous version of the original Conspiracy, but that's really splitting hairs. This is going to be very reminiscent of the original Conspiracy, with just a little more strength in the mid lane, a little more torque in the late mid lane because of that HK cover, and because of the quickness of the HK cover, maybe just not quite as round and blendy as that original Conspiracy. But all told, if you really miss that ball and you're looking for that nostalgic feel, then this is going to be all that you want and more. So definitely, if you missed out on getting that original Conspiracy, here's a good opportunity to see why it's one of the most popular Radical balls ever built. Now shifting gears in ball motion just a little bit, you'll notice that the Outer Limits Pearl is built to handle quite a bit less oil volume overall with the clean, shiny finish that it comes at out of box. It's going to be a sharp response to friction, but it also has a surprising amount of continuation. So I'm not really sure exactly how to characterize this motion. It is sharp without being super angular, but it's also continuous without being super slow to respond. It kind of really bridges the gap as a best of both worlds scenario. So you notice that we placed it on the chart below some of the sharpest balls like the Zigzag and the Katana series. You'll notice that the Katana Assault is no longer on the chart, but if it were, it would handle just a little more oil volume and be just a little sharper. It was sharper than the Strike and ball motion, and it's going to be right between the two in terms of oil volume that it could handle. So this Outer Limits Pearl might be a good replacement for that Katana Assault, but realistically, I see a much more round motion at the end of the lane, which is much more conducive for a wider variety of patterns and for a little bit more safety and security. And by that I mean where the Katana series can get a little jerk-stoppy and a little erratic. Sometimes that's a really fun ball motion and you can really get in and send it away because you know it's going to read the back of the lane. But sometimes the unpredictability with the amount that it reads the friction can lend to some unfavorable carry or some just unfavorable ability to get to the pocket. So the versatility of this Outer Limits with its slightly more sweeping motion, certainly less intermediate diff contributes to that, but also the core body shape contributes to a more continuous motion, a more sweeping motion without sacrificing too much back end. And despite the fact that this is a very clean and relatively sharp motion, a surprising amount of utility on a wide variety of conditions. The combination of the Radical Conspiracy and the Outer Limits Pearl really do make an amazing 1-2 punch. I could see this easily being a staple of the start of a bag that you could build the rest of your arsenal around. Of course, you'd have to have some symmetrical pieces in there, but I think if you brought a bag with just a Radical Conspiracy and an Outer Limits Pearl to League, I think you'd have a wide variety of medium heavy to medium light house conditions and challenge patterns covered. You might need a couple different shapes in the bag for a wide variety of sport patterns, but in terms of the patterns that you see the most frequently and you bowl the most on, these two balls are going to be an amazing 1-2 punch. And of course, you can fill out the rest of your arsenal with the balls that you see here on the chart. I don't need to talk too much about that. If you're looking for a little more length and change of direction, Zigzag is an excellent step down. And if you're looking for a ball that is just a little more change of direction at the back of the lane than the smoothness of the Conspiracy, the Hitter is still one of the best-selling balls in the Radical lineup. That's all the information I've got on these two brand new Radical balls available in pro shops as we speak. If you have any questions about how these two balls fit into the Radical lineup, how they might fit into your arsenal, or any questions about the core designs or the Radical arsenal in general, feel free to drop a comment below. I'm happy to respond when I have time. And since you're here, make sure you like and subscribe to my YouTube and Facebook pages, Bowling Buckosh, because I make new videos as we make new core designs for the balls in the Brands of Brunswick. Until next time, thanks for watching.